clappy thing.
Loud as you can.
Is this the technical term?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, and we are in business.
Okay.
I'm here with Missionary Steven Jones from Roatan, Honduras, and he is ministering for us this weekend here in Durham, North Carolina, and man, did he preach this morning. He did some good preaching, so it's good to have you, man.
It's good to be here. Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, you've had quite a go of it the last 5 months.
Yeah, go of it.
Yeah, to say the least, right?
To say the least, yeah, but everybody has.
Yeah.
No one's exempt from what's happening.
Well, you have had, in the last 5 months, you have been stuck here in the States. You wish you were in Roatan with your people.
Of course.
But you have recently had a new addition to your family, a new baby girl.
Mm-hmm. Sophia Claire Jones.
Ah, man.
Mm-hmm. She's 2.5 months old. I can't wait to get back and see her again.
Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of companionship for your wife in the midst of the 3 barbarians that are you and your 2 sons.
Our 3 little missionary jungle children.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot of history here, a lot to talk about. For those of you that are watching this online and are checking out the podcast, Brother Jones and I have a close connection in Roatan, Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
He was there. You were there. When did you first go there?
2012, January.
Yeah. And so Brother Miles Young helped plant and establish the church there originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then your father-in-law went over, Brother Malone.
Mm-hmm. In the summer of 2011, Brother Young was there on a brief reprieve from some mission work he was doing on the mainland, 2.5, 3 hours away. And during his stay, a taxi cab conversation turned into a Bible study, which turned into a conversion, which turned into an open door. So that was in the summer of 2011.
Yeah.
October 2011, he felt burdened to send a missionary family there. So October, we were presented with the idea. In January, we were on site, boots on the ground, living there.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a quick transition.
How old are you?
24.
So you're 24 years old. You're
Yeah.
in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
You're not fluent in Spanish.
Barely speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were there, and you built the Hope Corps Training Center.
We did, yeah.
Your father-in-law, I think, started it, and then he had a medical deal.
Yeah, he had a heart attack or a heart condition in the summer of 2012.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
That is 8 years ago.
I know it. It blows my mind to think that. Yeah. And so he is forced against his own will to go home and seek proper medical care. And so my wife and I, have no children at the time, are left with this enormous responsibility to raise the money and complete the Hope Corps Training Center.
And it's a big center.
It's a big building.
And, okay, so when people think build, they think cranes and concrete trucks and modern tools, but this is, Roatan is fairly primitive, and this was a church budget, a missions budget, which is always tight.
Yeah.
And so you would get funding from the states, and you did it piecemeal. When the money would come in, you would go and you would get more materials, and you would keep on building, and you're just holding it together.
Yeah.
You're supported almost exclusively by giving from the states.
Yeah.
And I saw how the guys mix concrete.
It's something else, huh?
It is a trip. So here in the U.S., when you mix concrete, you get a mixer. You get a
little 2 horsepower.
Yeah, and it turns, and you mix the water and the different materials, and you get concrete, and you pour it. But that's not how they did it.
No. That's too advanced.
See, this is something only a missionary can fully appreciate.
Yeah, and we laugh about it right now. But
Wasn't so funny.
no,
in the
and
moment.
when people think building, you say, well, the missionary built a church. Well, in people's mind, at least in my perception of what they're thinking, is he's taking offerings and he's paying people to build it.
Yeah.
And he says, I built it. Well, that's not how it happens in Honduras.
No.
When it says the missionary built it, the missionary built it.
Yeah.
Was laying blocks, mixing concrete, just because we had to.
Yeah.
And so when you ask anybody that's come to see us in the building process, now people know, don't come when Steven Jones is building, because he'll put you to work.
You will build the
I have
church.
something called shovel ministry. Amen. You can get acquainted with shovel ministry. Amen. It's cheap. It's cheap. You don't need a Bible quiz teacher to come over and train.
Here it is.
That's our new building. That's
This is a separate facility.
This is sophisticated.
Yeah.
We're talking 8 years ago before we knew how to get this done.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So it was a struggle.
Okay. So you built the Hope Corps Training Center,
Mhm.
which that we can accommodate how many
You
students?
can sleep 60 plus. There's 2 apartments, so 30 boys upstairs, 30 girls downstairs.
full commercial kitchen,
Commercial kitchen,
And
all
then-
air conditioned, hot water, very comfortable.
which is a big deal.
yeah, yeah,
But just for simple things that people take for granted, like there in Honduras, it's very hard to get water to places, particularly where this location's at. It's way out.
yeah.
There's no utilities getting there. So when you built that building, you built a cistern underneath it. It's
Yeah.
like an Olympic-sized swimming pool under your building,
Yeah, I think it's 40,000 gallons.
40,000-gallon cistern.
Yeah.
And you collect rainwater.
Rainwater. Or we can pay a water truck to come and put water in it, but that gets expensive.
Yeah.
So we just pray for the rain.
Pray for the rain. That's right. Okay, so that's Hope Corps. Now, then
Mm-hmm.
I moved there. And this is the connection that Brother Jones and I have, is my wife, Jackie, Joseph, and Benz and I, we moved to Roatan. I want to say it was around 14.
Yeah, we
14
were
to
there
15.
2012 and 2013, and we left to come home to have our first child and evangelize.
Yeah. So you were in the States,
Mm-hmm.
and we switched. And I went to Roatan, and I lived there for 1 year
Mm-hmm.
and helped with the church there, helped open up a new location in Sandy Bay, La Colonia.
Mm-hmm.
And you already had a church established in Cox and Hole, which is one of the main cities.
Yeah.
It's the main city. It's the capital city of Roatan, right?
Yeah. Well, in many ways, you started a new church, but we could get into the nitty gritty. But to suffice it to say, you saved and salvaged the work of God there, moving the church to where you did, and all of those dynamics was the salvation of the ministry in Roatan.
There's a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts.
Well, during that year, I was able to meet Hermano Gutierrez
Mm-hmm.
and bring him on board, and bring Brother Edson on board,
Mm-hmm.
and bring some of the men and disciple them and do Bible study with him, which after that year, then you were beginning to feel a tug back towards Roatan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I leave
Mm-hmm.
early 15, mid 15, no, late 14. I can't remember, the dates run away from me.
Mm-hmm.
But you come back,
Yeah.
and you took
We came back January 2017.
17.
We came back, yeah.
So maybe I was there 15 to 16. Maybe that's what it was.
I think there was a vacant year.
There was a little time. Then during that time, Brother Gutierrez
Stepped up to the plate,
and did a great job.
did a great job. These are men that you discipled and won, that are galvanized, strong apostolic leaders in our church right now.
So Brother Gutierrez is there, and him and Michael Ponce
Mm-hmm.
and others are holding it together for you in your
Yeah,
absence.
and doing a very great job.
Yeah. Man, that is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can remember sitting in a circle at I think it was at the Twin Palms Lodge. We would go there at nights because they had a nice veranda, and the ocean was there, and the breeze would come in, and we
Mhm.
could have a little dinner. I'd pay for everybody's dinner, and we'd all have a Bible study. And we did that for months, and we had 12 to 15 that would show up,
Mhm.
and we would go over the doctrine and the teachings, and we'd do leadership training. And it was a great time. And those men, many of them, are working with you, and
Still there.
you built on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you felt to buy a piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
How big is that piece?
It's a quarter acre, which sounds very small.
For the States, but on Roatan, it's a big deal.
Yeah, when you're on an island and there's land is not growing.
Yeah. And it's prime land.
Especially its location.
Yeah. God gave you an amazing location.
We had no business looking at that piece of property. We didn't have the money to buy it. We didn't have the church congregation to facilitate purchasing it. It was way beyond the scope of our budget. God led us to that property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have built, is it 3-story?
It's segments, but the first portion of it is 3 stories. Yeah.
And then you have a sanctuary that's after that. It's a long building.
Long building.
Shotgun building.
We almost built on the entire quarter acre. We just wanted to maximize our real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's oceanfront property.
Oceanfront property.
I mean, you can look out from the top and you see a beautiful ocean vista.
You could be in the congregation listening to preaching, worshiping, look out the window and see the Caribbean Sea.
See, I haven't seen it since you had the finished product. Is there a big window on the back?
There's 3 big windows on the side.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. It's the will of God.
Somebody's got to do it. It's a struggle.
Hey, listen, I don't have any sad stories to tell you right now.
Yeah, God's been good.
God's been good.
Okay, now what I love, and this is something that you and Brother Young always did cast this vision. I believed in this vision, is business as mission.
Mm-hmm.
It is a strong Hope Core concept that you can engage in different enterprises, different initiatives to work hand in hand with the work of God. And in your case, you guys are opening up a coffee shop because your church is located on the main thoroughfare. What do they call that road that runs through the whole island?
Calle Principal.
Calle Street Principal. Main Street.
Main Street.
I have to get it in my head and translate it, and then, Calle Principal.
Uh-huh.
And you're right there.
Right there. Right there. You cannot miss our church. It's impossible.
It's the most beautiful building on that island.
In my opinion, yeah, of course. There's resorts that are more extravagant and bigger, but in terms of a church, nothing even comes close.
Yeah. Okay, so you are setting it up to where, what a lot of folks do, and maybe some people watching this, they have been to Mahogany Bay, they've been to Cox and Hole on the cruise lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Carnival cruise that goes through there?
Disney, Carnival, Princess, Norwegian.
They all come through.
Royal Caribbean.
Okay, so they come. How many people are getting off those boats?
3,000 to 4,000.
Wow.
And there are days where we have 5 cruise ships at one time.
So 15 to 20,000 people in a day.
In a day.
If not more.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
That's a huge revenue deal in the nation of Honduras.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, Roatan pays 80% of the nation's budget.
That is mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a church on the main street.
On the main street.
That every one of those buses drives by.
Debt-free.
That's right.
We don't owe 1 penny on that church property.
Man.
Now, it's been a very expensive process, and thankfully the people of God internationally have been very benevolent to help facilitate and build an apostolic church there. But we owe nobody anything.
Okay, so Brother Jones is going to be too gracious to do this. I'm going to do this. Those of you listening online, go and donate and pray and love God and join in the mission. What is your website so people can go check you out?
ReachRoatan.net.
ReachRoatan.net. Can they give there?
I believe so, yeah.
It's a mission deal. They can give through the WPF. They can give through the IM.
Yeah. There are a variety of ways to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Brother Gutierrez here. And this is Brother Lopez.
Yes, sir. 2 excellent anointed apostolic men. That's the Hope Core Training Center right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first church in Cox and Hole.
First church location.
That's a lot of good. And who are these guys?
Look at those missionaries right there.
I was a little thinner then. I've been to the States too long.
Yeah, it's when you get to Roatan, you'll shed a few pounds. I need to get back pretty soon.
Okay, so you're building a coffee shop, and a very nice coffee shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're actually helping with the purchase of the coffee machine.
Mm-hmm.
And as buses come through, as tour buses come through, you will be able to serve them first class
First class.
in a
As nice as anything you can go to here.
yeah.
It took us a long time to get to this process just because we wanted to be wise financially, where we didn't overstretch, be good stewards of the resources God has given us. And the primary objective was to get our church building completed so we could have a place of worship, a haven,
Yeah.
a safe haven, a refuge for
Mhm.
the community. But now, and in the process, not only has the coffee shop been an idea for business as mission, but as we built the church, we purchased tools, hammers, drills, any heavy equipment. We bought a 2-bag concrete mixer, and we've built it and paid for it. And since we're not building right now, we are renting our tools to other people who are building.
Business is mission.
Business as mission. And
That's
so
right.
I've got a man in our church who oversees the property and maintenance, and he's overseeing the rental of all of our equipment. And so when somebody needs a tile cutter, a tile saw, they come by Primera Iglesia Apostolica, and they can find building equipment. And we do it at a reasonable price, but it helps to pay the church's bills.
That's a huge deal. You can open up a ferreteria there.
That's exactly right.
Okay, coffee shop in the front and a hardware store in the back.
Yeah, it's a missions mullet.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that model is a big deal because that's a significant revenue source in a missions environment, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
The classical missions model is complete dependence on the American church, which we want to give. We want people to give and to help out with that because it's a huge undertaking. You're actually starting new churches.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that in a second. The business's mission model with the coffee shop, you will be able to serve tourists that come through. People are going to get high quality coffee and coffee products there. And right beforehand, we were actually talking about possibly going to mainland and finding a source farm to get your beans from.
Yeah.
Because Honduran
coffee is premium coffee. A lot of it is exported to the States, and some of the most expensive cups of coffee you can get are Honduran. They come from the mountain region of Copan, and we need to go.
So we're going to go over there.
Source some coffee, plant a church.
I can't get kidnapped, though. We can't be doing that.
It is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Well, it's going to be an adventure.
It's going to be whoever can run the fastest.
All right, I'm going to be ready. I got to get in shape, man. So, I mean, I've done it. We went over to Rio Coco one time, and I drove through 3 rivers in a 4-wheel drive
That's the
pickup
way you
truck.
do it.
And I mean, just here in the States, you just have no frame of reference.
No, it's impossible. But it's a great experience for people.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
So you have recently purchased a boat with the express purpose of starting churches. The names of the 2 islands always...
Utila and Wanaha.
Wanaha
with a G. The boat was a vision of mine because the only 2 ways to access these islands is by a float plane or a boat.
Yeah.
And I cast a vision while preaching in California at the Rock Church, my home church, and the college and career department there got a burden, and they raised the entire amount to help us purchase that boat. And so that boat is purchased, it's paid for, and it is parked right in front of our church right now, and it's ready to be the vehicle of revival in those Bay Islands.
Yeah. Boy, that is...
Yeah. It's been a vision. We've got people in our church right now that were raised on these other islands, that have families on those other islands that are begging us, please, my family wants a Bible study. And we've just felt like our hands were tied. We really wanted our headquarters church to get strengthened and galvanized and established and mature. But now we're at the point where our local people in Roatan need to have a vision beyond our own island. I want our local church to participate in missions.
Yeah. And see, that's a paradigm that most mission works don't get to, but you are promoting this.
I want our young people to be a part of planting new churches in a foreign place.
Yeah.
I want to extract them out of the familiar and the comfortable and what they've known their entire life. And I want to put them in a place that feels scary and it's uncomfortable, and they have to depend on the grace of God to help them. There are things that will only develop in those kinds of environments.
Boy, it's the truth. The times in my life where God's grace was the most powerfully manifested was where I had to stretch.
Yeah.
When I didn't have the wherewithal, I didn't have the finances, I didn't have a support except God.
Yeah.
And God came through in a way that you can never know.
Yeah.
If it's from comfort, from ease,
Mm-hmm.
from a place of abundance, you just cannot know it.
No.
And so when you teach them to stretch,
Yeah.
then they enter into a dimension. This is your sanctuary.
Don't put that up there right now. I can't look at that. I'm going to start crying right now. That's a Wednesday night Bible study right now.
Man.
Primera Iglesia Apostolica.
So for everybody watching in Roatan, Brother Michael, Brother Gutierrez, Brother Edson, we love you.
Yeah.
We love you. We appreciate you guys. And I'm here with your pastor, and we are talking about the good things of God. For those that don't know, Roatan is an island just off of the country of Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a Caribbean island.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tourist destination for Americans
Mm-hmm.
and do Europeans come?
Yeah, yeah. People from all over the world, primarily Canadians and Americans, expats, but there are direct flights from Europe. We have a what do they call it? It is a Czech community. So the Republic of Czech has found a place in Roatan, and they are building like crazy. They're
That is
bringing
a
people.
trip.
When you go to Czech, the commercials you see are commercials advertising Roatan.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's a premier destination. One of the reasons, just from a tourism perspective, is the barrier reef.
Yeah, second largest natural barrier reef in the world. Only second to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people come from around the world.
All over.
Wow, we scuba dive that reef.
Yeah. And the benefit is you go to Australia and you've got great white sharks and predators in the water. You
Yeah.
come to Roatan and there are none.
Nothing that's going to eat you.
No.
Well, at least not a very big bite.
Yeah. I've been stung a few times by small creatures, but
Yeah.
it's minor.
That is so cool. Well, it is a beautiful place. It's an amazing place.
Mhm.
And it's really something to see what God's doing there.
Yeah.
To empower people the way that you are. So you're not just getting people in a church. You're not just evangelizing, but you are giving them kingdom principles, which is it's the gospel. It's the Acts 2:38 message, but it is also education.
Mm-hmm.
It's entrepreneurship. It is a vision beyond what they have known, mission for other places.
Mm-hmm.
Those are huge themes that not a lot of foreign works get into.
But they're apostolic.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. The kingdom's a kingdom.
Yeah. I've just decided if I can't preach it in Africa or under a tin roof on a hill in Honduras, then it's not the gospel.
Mm.
I've simplified it to things that are apostolic, and we've tried to cut out the frill, and we're building apostolic disciples.
That's wonderful. You got some amazing people.
They're beautiful people.
So you're getting through COVID. Everybody's getting through COVID.
Surviving.
Yeah. And you get to go back here in the next month or so.
Mm-hmm. The countdown.
Yeah. You'll be on a plane. I think the first plane back.
One of the first, yeah. I wanted to let a couple go ahead of me so they can work out the kinks. I don't want to. Brother Wilson always told us, he said, don't be the first, but don't be the last.
Yeah, that's good. That's so funny. You said something this morning that made me laugh about Brother Wilson.
Yeah.
You said, but Brother Wilson always taught that whenever you see a therefore in the Bible, you need to go back to the verse before it to see what it's there for.
Exactly.
A Wilsonism.
Yeah, a Wilsonism. That's exactly right.
So you'll be heading back, and COVID's been tough.
Yeah.
COVID has rearranged. It's rearranged a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, just in the last year, globally, there are issues facing the church, issues of religious liberty versus the right to congregate and the right to congregate and gather for worship, versus health
Mm-hmm.
and considering other people. Can you infect other people? That's a pretty interesting and treacherous dynamic to work through for churches.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in a third world country.
You said that the curfew was 5 o'clock.
5 p.m.
You have to be in
your house
at 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
And if you're not, what happens?
You potentially could be assaulted by police. We've got military police that are riding around in pickup trucks with AR-15s and full camouflage that have assaulted people who aren't home by curfew. You will be put in jail and you will be fined.
See, here in America, folks don't have any frame of reference. I remember when I went to Roatan and I was driving down the Calle Principal.
Calle Principal.
I would go through the different little cities there along the coast, right outside Cox and Hole, and then on into Cox and Hole.
Mm-hmm.
And you would see these checkpoints where soldiers would be there, full camo, a pickup truck. There'd be about 5, 6 guys, sometimes women, and they'd be in uniform, and they have these guns, AR-15s, and I don't know what else. They're formidable, and they're not playing.
No.
And you need to roll your windows down, and people so they can see inside, and then they wave you on.
Yeah. And there's a lot of activity that happens at those checkpoints that is not talked about. Briberies and those sorts of things.
I would never tell you about the time I learned that. I was driving on the road and I had headphones. Because I would be, I'd get in the car. It's this one main road that runs through the island, and you're there for a while. You're behind cars.
Yeah.
You're meandering.
It's a few hours if you want to do the full island. Yeah.
So I'd go from where we were staying in the Pineapple Villa. I would go all the way down to West Bay or West End, and you'd go through a couple of those checkpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my headphones in my ears, and the guy, he stops me, and he waves me over. He points at my headphones. He says something in Spanish. Now, my Spanish was atrocious then. Now it's just horrible, but it was atrocious then. And he was pointing at my ears, and I didn't know what he was saying. Well, another one that spoke better English came up and said, it's illegal to have headphones in your ears as you're driving. Only one ear, and not 2.
Okay.
And I said, well, okay. Well, I'm sorry. He said, no, you have to
pay a fine.
You have to pay the fine.
Right now. I am the fine collector.
So I was thinking,
yeah.
Okay, I'd write the ticket, and he said, well, you come with me to jail. You talk to the judge. And I went, whoa.
We don't want that.
Well, we just jumped a couple levels here.
Yeah.
And no, we do not want that. And so I said, the judge, he said, or you can pay the fine.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking United States, I'm thinking $100, $150. And I said, what's the fine? He said, $10.
Mm-hmm.
$10. And
gladly pay that.
I was fumbling through my pockets that had that $10 bill, and I'm sure that went to the betterment.
Oh yeah, it went straight to the government.
Yeah.
I had an incident. I had an incident recently where I was confronted by a situation like that where they said you need to pay $650. And I said, $650? And I knew I was getting raked over the coals. I knew it. They knew who I was, and they were trying to take advantage of me. And I said, I don't have $650. And they said, how much do you have? And I remember.
This is at a sliding scale.
Yeah. And so I reached in my pocket, and I pulled out my cash. And they said, how much is that? And I counted it down to the last lempira. I had $251 in my pocket. And I just looked up at them, and they said, that'll do.
Es suficiente?
Es suficiente. Está bien. And as mad as I was to hand that to him, I knew that I'd be fighting a disadvantage.
Yeah.
If I just didn't comply.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say that I suffered through that, but it's a part of it.
Yeah, the spiritual man warred with the carnal man in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Bienvenido. Well, it's just folks that have never, seen that. They might not have a frame of reference for that. Those are just some of the deals that you go through.
Yeah.
Okay, so COVID has done all of that. It has put everybody in this predicament. And that's interesting because the churches are having to work their way through those dynamics.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah. Here in Durham, we have a pretty left-leaning political system, and they are very progressive. They're very serious about COVID compliance, and I understand that COVID's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a joke. It's not a game. People do suffer from it.
Yeah, I've got a text since we started this. 2 people right before in my church just tested positive for it today.
Yeah. We've had several that have tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
Durham and Durham County, a lot of people have. And I have actually had people that I love very much that have died,
Mm-hmm.
that have passed away. We've lost some great people from this. There is no denying that this is a real sickness. And unfortunately, they're starting to develop some things. Like I recently had someone that is very close to me that had it, and they were able to catch it before the symptoms got really bad. And something about it now what they're doing is if they can catch you before your respiratory system really begins to labor,
Mm-hmm.
the oxygen levels drop. You can put those little finger monitors on your hand, and they can tell how much oxygen is in your blood. And if it drops below, I think it's 95 or 96, they want you to go and get checked out. Well, this person did, and they hospitalized her right on the spot. And she thought, I'm going to get a little antibiotic or maybe a steroid shot or something, and they'll send me home. No, she wasn't laboring. She didn't have any problems, just a little bit of, kind of cold symptoms.
Wow.
But they were able to get oxygen immediately before there was any labored breathing, before there was a lot of struggle. And because of that, it mitigated a lot of the dangerous dynamics that we see. Now, when COVID first came out, that wasn't happening. People were just staying home and just trying to get past it. And people have died because of that.
It's real.
Yeah, they say your lungs become fibrous, and they literally can't absorb oxygen. So that's not discounting the threat of it, but it's also been politicized.
Oh, yeah.
There's been some political stuff, and the old saying is, you never let a crisis go to waste.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that are making hay out of this. It's the fact that it's an election year, the fact that Democrats and Republicans are at each other's throats and they're trying to win. This thing has been turned into something that has destroyed the world economy.
Right.
And churches are caught in the middle of this.
Yeah.
We have people that we know that are on national news right now.
Yeah.
And somebody told me, they said, when COVID is ever mentioned, there are going to be names mentioned. And some of these people will be mentioned in the history books. Because of the struggle between the freedom to assemble and
church and state.
And health and the greater good. So people don't understand why apostolics, we want to come together. We are people who, that's what we do. We do not forsake the assembling of ourselves together. The Bible teaches that. And so there's this balance between common sense, being careful, being cautious, and also acknowledging the health dynamics.
Yeah.
So that's a hot button topic. And it's not something to be taken lightly. It's hit you guys there.
Yeah.
In Roatan.
It's decimated.
Yeah.
Decimated.
You're here for half a year.
Yeah. 6 months.
It's a long time to be away.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we chose to do here is we have a lot of people that work for Duke University. We have a lot of people that work in the medical field, and they are around people all day, every day. People in the medical field get very frustrated by this because church people can very flippantly say, it's no big deal. Just have faith in God, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But I do not believe that faith is just blindly walking into something.
Right.
And for instance, and there's different ways that people handle this, but we've canceled conferences, and we did stop live in-person services for a period of time. We would have people that would contract COVID, enough people that we would stop our services until everybody could make sure they didn't have symptoms. They could quarantine, and we would stream online. And a lot of us got criticized for that.
Yeah.
People said, you're afraid, you're a coward.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in part of some of those conversations.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It's not a fun time.
No, and for me personally, it's hurtful because I'm doing my best to follow God and obey the commandment by God for me to shepherd my people. And it's a unique dynamic in a third world country. But our people there, they want to have church just like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And Honduras, Harvard released a statistic that measures the impact of COVID in a country. And they've done a 1 to 100. It's either a 1 to 100 or 1 to 10 on a scale of how severe COVID has been on a particular country. There's only 2 countries in the world that have scored 100 or a 10. I can't remember if it's 10 or 100 in terms of its severity. And one is Honduras, and the other is El Salvador. Wow. Honduras has had the longest quarantine in the world. 90% of the country is unemployed. 80% of the businesses will never reopen.
Wow.
Ever.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 will never reopen.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we want it to be over. Yeah, I've got people in our church starving right now. And so we've turned our entire sanctuary into, well, now we just returned back to church services 2 weeks ago. But up until then, we just turned our church into a food pantry. And we've fed 20,000 meals in 6 months, which is not a lot. Others could do more, but with our limited resources and budget, we've been able to provide basic necessities to our church people and kept them alive.
Yeah.
When they couldn't physically be in church with us.
That's what a time for the church to shine.
Yeah.
And to do what we're called to do.
Yeah.
Which is minister to people. So making hard decisions like that, people are kind of being separated into 2 camps in the church world. One of them is we're going to comply as far as we can. We're going to obey health mandates. We're going to consider the health of others, the elderly. And I fall into this camp. I'm not afraid to push forward, but I am a shepherd of a flock of people, and their health matters.
Yeah.
And there's another camp that basically says, don't be afraid of any virus. Don't be afraid of anything. Faith, not fear. And they take a pretty aggressive stance on it. And the problem the reason why I won't do that is if you did that and you were in Honduras, you'd be in jail.
I'd be in jail.
And
in prison.
Yeah.
Honduran prison.
Yeah.
Doesn't come with 3 meals and a warm bed.
No es bueno.
No es bueno. Es mal.
Yeah. Muy mal.
Muy mal.
Okay, so it's not that we're afraid to suffer persecution for the gospel's sake. The scripture is filled with people that did. The Apostle Paul, Peter, it happened all the time. But there's a difference between knowing that you have to be cautious around a highway and going out and playing in the highway.
Yeah.
Laying down in the highway and saying, God is going to deliver me. And so the Bible describes it. There was a time when Jesus was in the wilderness, and it says of him that Satan appeared and said, cast yourself off here from this mountain, because it is written that God will give his angels charge over thee, and they will bear thee up in their arms, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone.
Yeah.
And so Jesus' response was, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Now that is a reference that goes all the way back to the book of Numbers, where the Bible says they tempted the Lord. And they said, can God provide bread in the wilderness? Can he provide meat in the wilderness?
Yeah.
And the Bible says they tempted the Lord, and the Lord slew them. So there is a tempting that people do in times of crisis, in times where there's no food, in times where it looks like the Bible says do this. So here we go. We're going to do it because we're not afraid.
Yeah.
But that is not what the scripture is telling us to do, because you could look at it, and the Bible does say that his angels will bear thee up, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. And there's a lot of scriptures you can use to support not heeding a virus. But during the time of the Black Plague, it was a bad idea to just run into a place and not consider any quarantine. Basic quarantine is laid out very specifically in Leviticus, in Deuteronomy. Leprosy was the contagion of the day. God gave us that. This is ancient knowledge. To ignore it is silly. I was talking to a organ transplant patient, dear friend of mine. And he was saying, I can't go to church at this time. And I said, well, why? He said, because I have an organ that was transplanted into my body. And he said, it took me 10 years, a decade, to get onto the list to qualify. To qualify to have an organ transplant is huge. It's a
miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
And most people die waiting.
They never get it.
Never get it. He did. It was a great day of victory.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets COVID with no immune system,
he's compromised.
Not only is he compromised, they have to take him off the immunosuppressant drugs immediately to give him immunotherapy to bolster his immune system to fight COVID. And once that happens, the body attacks
the organ.
And at best, he's back on another 5 to 10 year wait.
To get a new one.
And the odds are he'll die.
Yeah.
And now, if I'm going to say that he's afraid, then that's a great disservice that we do to people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough deal, and there are people in the Middle East right now that if they have assembling services, they will be put in prison in Islamic-dominated countries.
Yeah.
In Central America, where you are, you have very harsh repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
You're not afraid.
No.
But you are compliant to the greatest degree that you can be.
Yeah. I think we're adapting, like apostolics are called to do.
Mm-hmm.
Adapt. We're not compromising. We're not conceding ground to the enemy. Bible studies are still happening. Baptisms are still happening. Revival is still moving forward. We're just being cautious and respectful of our community, because when this passes, which it will, just like every pestilence that has happened in the history of civilization has, the Bible talks about noisy pestilence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. It's a distraction. It's a very real. I'm not minimizing the consequences, but it'll distract us from our calling. And when it's over, our community will look at our church and say, I honor those people. Those are people of faith, but they love their community, and they're here to impact us in a good way.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Well, we baptized more people here in the last couple of weeks than we did before.
Yeah.
The pandemic broke out. And part of that is because we're streaming online. We're making a concentrated effort to do it. We are having services.
Mm-hmm.
We're very careful of how we proceed with the services. If there is an outbreak, we have stopped in-person services 2 times. And if there's an outbreak that necessitates it, we would do it again, just so that people could quarantine. The Bible teaches quarantine. And the problem that I run into ethically, and here's why I won't have a conference, and this is also why I do consider going to just streaming, is because I will not bring people from around the nation into our facility. We can house a lot of people in our facility, hold a large service. I'm not going to bring them into a place where...
What can your building hold?
If we...
Maxed out. Chairs and everything.
Back up and get a running start and shove them in?
Yeah.
We can probably cram 1,000 to 1,200 in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Just the normal seating, it's 8 to 850. And then with the platform, I think we could probably get it up to 9. And then if people are just standing and extra seats and everything, we can accommodate more. You get that kind of a number into a place from around the world. You have created a disease vector. It's one of the reasons why we canceled the Peak Conference. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to make that decision. And there were guys that it brought tears to their eyes to have to do it. But we chose not to do it. And the reason is because we know that these people are going to go home to grandma and grandpa. They're going to go home to mom and dad. They're going to go home to vulnerable populations. And there is a time to embrace, and there's a time to refrain from embracing.
Yeah,
is what Ecclesiastes says. There's a time to live, a time to be born, and there's a time to die. Mm-hmm. And so all those times, knowing those times, being aware of this, there's a way to navigate that. So we chose to do it that way. It's a tough deal, but you guys in a third world country would have it on a level that people here in the States. When guys say you're afraid, they're saying it from the comfort of the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing I haven't said. because I think it goes without saying, but we, up until 2 weeks ago, we didn't even have a respirator on the island. We had none.
So if someone has and there's a lot of people that need respirators,
Yeah.
they're going to die.
Now we have a few, but if more than a few need one, we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I saw a picture this week. Hurricane Nana just came through the Caribbean and slammed into Honduras and Belize. And thankfully, all we got was a downpour. We didn't get the heavy winds. But the local public hospital was 4 feet underwater.
Wow.
With patients.
Wow.
It was not evacuated. People were still in the hospital beds with 4 feet of water.
And we're talking about hospitals that are different than here in the States.
Yeah, that have urine and feces on the ground, blood on the wall, iguanas. And
I did an operation one time. I helped with an operation, and while I was holding the wound together, a dog walked by.
yeah, I've been in there. And lizards have crawled across my body while I was on the hospital bed.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've had good health in Honduras. A few months ago, we had a Hope Corps student endure an accident. She got her finger caught in the door, and it's just one of those freak accidents. It actually cut her finger off.
Oh, wow. I heard about that.
Yeah, and it was a deal. We had to rush her to the hospital. We took her to the private hospital, which if you've got good American insurance, you should be okay. But it's meant for that. It's meant for people that have a little bit more resources. And we went in, and I had to be the Spanish translator for the surgeon, along with Sister Young was there to be the surgeon assistant. It was a one of a kind experience.
Now, did Wilson University prepare you for that?
They did their best. I just remember the Hope Corps student was so she was so traumatized. She was just speaking in tongues the whole time they were trying to sew her finger back on. And that doctor just looked up at her thinking, my God, this is the craziest surgery I've ever performed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that finger did not survive.
Wow.
And she ended up losing it when she got to the States.
Yeah. Third world dynamics.
It's there. It's real. And so when you get COVID in Honduras, if you get COVID, you just better pray that you've got a strong, bolstered immune system, because the public hospital is not where you want to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so where I came to from a theological perspective is that tempting the Lord is when you take scriptures and you use them to put yourself in harm's way, or leaders use them to put folks in harm's way. For whatever reason, maybe they know it, maybe they don't know it, but Satan did it to Jesus. Jesus rebuked him. And actually, when Jesus describes the Lord's Prayer, he says, lead us not into temptation. Yeah. It doesn't just mean, a strong desire, keep me away from strong desires that are bad. That's not all that means. It also means wrong theological thinking that create battles that should never be fought. And if you jump off a cliff thinking the angels are going to catch you, God can let you die.
Yeah.
Because you tempted the Lord.
Yeah.
It's an ancient thing, and it's a uniquely church thing, because that is one where Scripture is used to justify a non-scriptural precedent. That's tempting the Lord. And
wow.
Anyway, it's just some of the weird stuff that we're dealing with and going through right now.
For years, it's been rhetoric in apostolic churches. I'm going to fleece the Lord. That's just your carnal way of saying you're going to tempt the Lord.
Man, I like standing on solid scriptures.
Yeah, me too.
And I tell you, I like listening to elders.
Yeah.
Elders are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And when there are elders that are saying thus, and so, I hearken to that. They've been there. They've seen things. They have endured many, many storms. And they're there for a reason. And so I'm thankful for Bishop Godare. I'm thankful for Bishop Wilson and Bishop Holmes and others that have really helped guide the apostolic world through a pretty scary time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed what David Bernard put out. He put out a statement that there was a lot of clarity to it. It said a lot of good things. and it helped people in a time. There have to be clear voices of people, and bishops and elders, they make those statements
Yeah.
and help us.
Yeah. Thank God for them.
Well, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time. There's a lot of stuff that is going to be happening in the future. I'm glad you could be here with us
Yeah. I'm honored.
this weekend. You're going to be
Really?
preaching here in just a little bit.
Just a few minutes.
So we're between services right now. We figured we'd catch a little podcast time while Brother Jones was here in town. And so, we're going to have a good church tonight. And then tomorrow you get back home to your lovely family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to be praying for you while you're in Roatan.
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
More than your prayers. Well, in addition to your prayers, I should say, we would be honored for you and your family to return and come see us again.
Whether it be, and we're going to.
We'd love it.
We got to.
I know our church would. They just think the world of you guys.
Well, they're amazing people. I want to see the new facility. I haven't seen it since it's got the new roof and all of that. I wasn't able to come for the dedication. I understand that was a beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, it was something special.
You packed that place out, didn't you?
Yeah, we had maximum occupancy. We didn't have any more chairs. We had standing room only.
400 people?
Close to it, yeah, if not more.
Just people just hanging.
Yeah, just everywhere. We ran out of chairs, but we had invited our local officials and other local preachers and other denominations to come
That's
and participate.
That's a neat thing.
Yeah, along with all the Hope Corps students that were there, and then our church, of course. It was a really, really great celebration.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be great. It's going to get better. There's going to be churches in other locations, and the model that you are working towards is not a typical missions model. It is a much more New Testament-centric model than some of the colonial pattern models. And so you're empowering people. You're raising education. You're creating a whole revival dynamic, and that's exciting to watch it.
We're thrilled to be a part.
Awesome. Well, man, it's good to have you.
Yeah.
And we'll have to get you back soon.
Let's do it.
All right, man. God bless you.
Or bless you.